I never thought I'd be writing this post, but after everything that's happened in the past 8 months, I need to get this off my chest. This is going to be long, so bear with me. I'm still processing it all, and honestly, some days I wake up and can't believe this was my actual life. My name's irrelevant, but let's call me the idiot who trusted the wrong people. I worked at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago called Horizon Creative Group. For 3 years, I poured my heart and soul into that place. I'm talking 60-hour weeks, skipped vacations, missed birthdays, the whole corporate slave package. I genuinely believed I was building something, that my loyalty would pay off. My boss was a woman named Jennifer Matthews. On paper, she was the dream mentor, charismatic, successful, always talking about empowering the team and lifting each other up. She was 42, had this polished corporate aesthetic going on, and everyone respected her. When I first started, she took me under her wing, told me I had real potential, and that she saw herself in me. I ate it up like the naive 27-year-old I was. Then there was Marcus Webb, my colleague. He'd been at the company for about 2 years when I joined. We clicked immediately, or so I thought. We'd grab lunch together, vent about difficult clients, collaborate on projects. He was 31, funny, seemingly genuine. We weren't best friends, but I trusted him. That was my first mistake. The first signs of trouble started about 8 months ago, around April. Looking back now, I can see the red flags clearly, but at the time, I was completely blind. That's the thing about manipulation. It's invisible until you know what you're looking for. Jennifer started having these private strategy sessions with Marcus. At first, I didn't think much of it. Marcus was working on the Belmont healthcare account, a huge client worth about $2 million annually. It made sense that they'd need to coordinate. But then I noticed the closed-door meetings were happening daily, sometimes twice a day. And whenever I walked past Jennifer's office, they'd stop talking and look up with these weird expressions. Just boring budget stuff. Marcus said one afternoon when I asked what was going on. He laughed it off, but something in his voice felt off. You know how Jennifer gets about numbers. I didn't know. Jennifer was meticulous about financials, sure, but this felt different. There was an energy shift in the office. Other coworkers noticed it too. Sarah from accounting mentioned that Jennifer had requested Marcus's project files multiple times, which was unusual since she typically only reviewed files during quarterly assessments. Around the same time, I was working on what I considered my magnum opus, a complete rebranding strategy for Titanium Auto Group, a luxury car dealership chain expanding nationwide. This wasn't just another project. This was the kind of campaign that could define a career. I'd spent 4 months researching, developing consumer personas, creating mock-ups, writing copy. I was planning to present it to the executive team in June. I'd shared my progress with Jennifer during our weekly one-on-ones. She seemed enthusiastic, asking detailed questions, taking notes. This is exactly the innovative thinking we need, she told me in early May. You're really onto something here. I should have known something was wrong when Jennifer started asking me to document everything in excessive detail. I want to make sure we capture your brilliant process, she said with that warm smile of hers. This could be a case study for the whole company. Like an idiot, I gave her everything. Every spreadsheet, every research document, every creative brief. I organized it all into a shared folder, thinking I was being a model employee. I even stayed late on a Friday in mid-May to finish a comprehensive presentation deck that outlined the entire Titanium Auto strategy from conception to execution. That same week, Marcus started acting strange around me. He'd avoid eye contact in meetings, give one-word answers when I tried to chat. When I asked if everything was okay, he said, "Yeah, just stressed about Belmont. You know how it is." But I didn't know. Because whatever was happening with Belmont, it didn't explain why he and Jennifer were suddenly having lunch together 3 times a week. It didn't explain why I'd see them in the parking garage having intense conversations that would stop the moment I appeared. The real discovery came on a Tuesday morning in late May. I got to the office early, around 6:30, because I wanted to rehearse my Titanium Auto presentation before the big executive meeting scheduled for the following week. The office was empty, or so I thought, until I heard voices coming from the conference room. Jennifer's voice carried through the door. "We need to make sure the timeline looks right. If anyone questions when this was developed, we have the documentation to back it up." Then Marcus, "What about the research notes? Some of those have dates." "I've already handled that. Changed the metadata." As far as anyone can prove, we've been developing this since February. My blood went cold. I stood frozen in the hallway, my laptop bag sliding off my shoulder. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, trying to process what I was hearing. They were talking about changing dates, altering documentation. But for what project? My project? Jennifer continued. The presentation is strong. The executive team is going to love it. This could be the account that finally gets me that VP position. And my promotion to senior strategist? Marcus asked. Already in the works. Once we land Titanium Auto with this pitch, I'll make sure you're taken care of. We're a team now. My hands started shaking. They were talking about Titanium Auto. My Titanium Auto. The project I'd been bleeding over for 4 months. The campaign that was supposed to be my breakthrough. I should have burst into that conference room right then. I should have confronted them, recorded the conversation, done something. But I was in shock, completely paralyzed by the realization that the two people I'd trusted most in that office were actively plotting to steal my work. Instead, I quietly backed away, went to my desk, and tried to act normal when other employees started arriving. My mind was racing. I needed proof. I needed evidence beyond what I'd overheard, because who would believe me? Jennifer was a director with 8 years at the company. Marcus was the golden boy who'd brought in 3 major accounts last year. I was just a mid-level strategist with 3 years under my belt. I spent that entire day pretending everything was fine while internally screaming. I smiled at Marcus when he asked about my weekend plans. I nodded along in our team meeting when Jennifer talked about exciting opportunities on the horizon, all while knowing they were planning to present my work as their own. That evening, I stayed late again. But this time, I wasn't working on my presentation. I was gathering evidence. I started with the shared folder where I'd uploaded all my Titanium Auto materials. The access log showed Jennifer had downloaded everything multiple times over the past 3 weeks. Every single file, research documents, creative briefs, presentation decks, even my personal notes. Marcus had accessed them too, though less frequently. Then I checked my email archives. I'd sent Jennifer regular updates about the project, always CCing myself on important messages. I had timestamps, detailed descriptions of my progress, even her responses praising specific elements that I'd developed. This was my paper trail, proof that the work was mine from the beginning. But here's where it got worse. When I logged into the shared drive, I noticed something disturbing. The original files I'd uploaded had been modified. The date created metadata had been changed to February, 3 months before I'd actually started the project. The file names had been altered to remove my initials. And several key documents now listed Jennifer and Marcus as co-authors. They'd been systematically erasing me from my own work. I felt sick. This wasn't just stealing an idea. This was premeditated, calculated fraud. They'd planned this carefully, covering their tracks, building a false narrative that they could defend if questioned. I spent the next 2 hours downloading everything I could to my personal laptop. Every email, every file version, every piece of evidence that proved the timeline and authorship of the project. I even found draft emails in Jennifer's folder. She'd apparently forgotten to delete them, where she and Marcus discussed repositioning the Titanium strategy as a collaborative leadership initiative. Around 9 p.m., I heard footsteps. I quickly closed my laptop and pretended to be working on something else. Marcus appeared at my cubicle entrance. "You're here late," he said. His tone was casual, but his eyes were suspicious. "Could say the same about you," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Just finishing up some Belmont stuff," he said, but he didn't move. He stood there, watching me, and the silence stretched uncomfortably between us. "What are you working on?" "Client correspondence," I lied smoothly. "Nothing exciting." He nodded slowly, but I could see his jaw tense. "Listen, I wanted to ask you something. Have you noticed anything weird with the shared drives lately? Like files being accessed or moved around?" My heart stopped, but I forced myself to stay calm. "No, why? Did something happen?" "Just some technical glitches, I think. IT mentioned they're doing system updates." He was lying. There were no system updates. He was trying to figure out if I knew something. "Sounds annoying," I said, turning back to my computer. "Hope they fix it soon." He lingered for another moment, then finally walked away. I waited until I heard the elevator ding before I exhaled. They were getting paranoid, which meant I was running out of time. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. I sat in my apartment, staring at all the evidence I'd gathered, trying to figure out what to do with it. My first instinct was to go straight to HR. But I knew how these things worked. Jennifer had been with the company for 8 years. She had relationships with the executives, credibility, political capital. If I accused her of stealing my work without bulletproof evidence and a clear strategy, I'd be the one who looked like a troublemaker. I needed more. I needed to catch them in the act. That's when I remembered something. The executive presentation for new business pitches was scheduled for the following Tuesday, 6 days away. If Jennifer was planning to present my work as hers, she'd need to prepare, probably rehearse with Marcus. I returned to work on Thursday, acting like everything was normal. Jennifer actually seemed relieved to see me. "Feeling better?" she asked with what I now recognized as completely fake concern. "Much better. Thanks," I said, smiling back at her with equal fakeness. That afternoon, I intentionally brought up the titanium auto presentation in our team meeting. "I'm really excited about Tuesday," I said. "I've been refining some of the messaging for the campaign, and I think the executive team is going to love the direction." The look that passed between Jennifer and Marcus was brief, but unmistakable. Panic. Pure panic. Jennifer recovered quickly. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. There's been a change in strategy. The executive team wants to see a more collaborative approach to major pitches going forward, so Marcus and I are going to present the titanium proposal together. It's a great opportunity for cross-functional leadership." I felt my face flush hot, but I kept my expression neutral. "Oh, that's unexpected. I've been developing that campaign for months. And your work has been invaluable," she said smoothly. "This isn't about replacing you. It's about showcasing team capability. You understand, right? It's what's best for the company." "Of course," I said, even as rage burned in my chest. "Whatever's best for the company." Marcus wouldn't even look at me. He just stared at his notepad, pretending to write something important. After the meeting, I went straight to my desk and started planning. I had 4 days until the presentation. 4 days to expose them before they could steal my career-defining work in front of the entire executive team. That weekend, I barely slept. I organized all my evidence into a comprehensive document: emails with timestamps, original file versions, my personal research notes, everything. But I also did something else. I started a journal of everything that had happened: dates, conversations, exact wording. I treated it like a crime log, because that's what it felt like, a crime in progress. Sunday night, around midnight, I made the decision that changed everything. I wasn't just going to quietly complain to HR. I was going to let Jennifer and Marcus walk themselves into a trap. On Monday, I went to IT. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. Instead, I played the concerned employee card. I told Daniel, the IT guy, that I'd noticed some weird behavior in the shared drives, metadata changing, access logs looking strange. I said I was worried some of our client files might be compromised. Daniel frowned and said, "We haven't pushed any updates that should affect metadata. Can you show me what you're seeing?" I walked him through a few examples that didn't directly involve titanium, just enough to get his attention. He looked genuinely disturbed. "I'll escalate this," he said. "We might need to run an audit on file access." "That sounds smart," I said. "If anything shady is going on, the executives would definitely want to know before Tuesday's pitch, right?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, they would." That was step 1. Step 2 was riskier. I needed to know exactly what Jennifer and Marcus planned to present. So Monday afternoon, I waited until lunch, when most people were out, and I walked past Jennifer's office. The door was cracked open. Her laptop screen was visible from the hallway. There it was, a PowerPoint titled Titanium Auto, Integrated Brand Reinvention, Matthews/Web Leadership Initiative. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to knock lightly on the door. "Got a minute to talk about tomorrow?" I asked. She minimized the window so fast, it was almost comical. "Of course," she said, smiling tightly. "Come in." I sat down and watched her carefully. "I just want to make sure I'm prepared for my role in the presentation," I said. "What sections did you want me to cover?" Her eyes flickered. "Actually, after discussing with upper management, we've decided it'll be more streamlined if Marcus and I handle the pitch directly. You'll be acknowledged in the written materials as a contributor, of course, but we don't want too many voices in the room." "So I'm not presenting at all?" I asked. "It's not personal," she said. "This is about optics. Leadership wants to see senior-level ownership." I nodded slowly. Got it. Inside, something snapped. They were really going to do it. And they thought I was just going to sit there and take it. That evening, I did something desperate. I reached out to Rachel Kim, one of the executives who'd be in Tuesday's presentation. We'd worked together briefly on a smaller campaign last year, and she'd always been professional and fair. I sent her a carefully worded email. Hi, Rachel. I wanted to touch base before Tuesday's titanium presentation. I've been the lead strategist on this campaign since January, developing the research and creative direction. Jennifer mentioned there's been a shift to have senior leadership present, which I understand from an optics perspective. I just wanted to make sure you had visibility into the project's development timeline in case any questions come up about the strategy's origins. Happy to provide supporting documentation if helpful. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. It was vague enough not to sound like an accusation, but specific enough to plant a seed of doubt. Rachel responded within an hour. Thanks for the heads up. Let's schedule a brief call tomorrow morning before the presentation. I'd like to understand the full project history. My hands were shaking when I read that. This was it. This was my chance. Tuesday morning arrived like a slow-motion nightmare. I got to the office at 7 a.m., dressed in my best suit. I'd barely slept, running through every possible scenario in my head. At 8, I had my call with Rachel. I laid it all out. Calmly, professionally, with zero emotion. I shared my screen and walked her through the evidence. Original emails from January showing my initial concept development, file creation dates before they'd been altered, my detailed research notes with timestamps. I explained that I discovered the metadata had been changed and that I was concerned about misrepresentation of the project's authorship. Rachel's voice was cold when she finally spoke. This is a serious allegation. You understand that? I do, I said. Which is why I documented everything. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just want credit for my work. I need to escalate this to Thomas, she said, referring to Thomas Chun, our VP of Operations. Don't discuss this with anyone else until we've investigated. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 9:30, Jennifer stopped by my desk, looking nervous. Have you seen Marcus this morning? She asked, trying to sound casual. He's not answering his phone. No idea, I said, not looking up from my computer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. She lingered awkwardly. Listen, I know this transition has been difficult for you, but I hope you understand it's really about what's best for your career development in the long run. Sometimes taking a step back allows you to. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. I need to take this, she said abruptly, walking away. I watched her hurry toward the elevators, phone pressed to her ear. Whatever was happening, it was starting. At 9:45, my desk phone rang. It was Thomas Chin's assistant. Thomas would like to see you in conference room A immediately. When I walked in, the atmosphere was arctic. Thomas sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Rachel was there, along with Diane Foster from HR, and two people I didn't recognize, probably legal. Jennifer and Marcus sat on the opposite side, and Jennifer's polished composure had completely cracked. Her face was blotchy, mascara smudged. Marcus looked like he might vomit. Sit down, Thomas said to me, gesturing to a chair away from both of them. For the next 2 hours, it was an interrogation. They went through everything: file access logs, email chains, the metadata changes, the timeline of project development. IT had apparently completed their audit overnight after Daniel flagged the irregularities. Jennifer tried to maintain control at first. This is a misunderstanding, she said. The Titanium campaign was always intended to be a collaborative effort. I've been mentoring her through the process. Then why did you change the file creation dates? Rachel interrupted, her voice sharp. Why does the metadata show systematic alteration of documents to backdate them by 3 months? Jennifer's mouth opened and closed. That must be a technical error. Technical errors don't selectively change only the files related to one specific project, Thomas said flatly. And they don't explain the draft emails we found where you and Marcus explicitly discussed repositioning the strategy as your initiative. Marcus actually put his head in his hands. Diane from HR turned to me. Walk us through your development process from the beginning. Start with when you first conceptualized the Titanium campaign. I took a deep breath and did exactly that. I explained how I'd identified Titanium Auto Group as a potential client in early January after reading about their expansion plans. How I'd spent weeks researching the luxury auto market, developing consumer personas, analyzing their competitors. How I'd pitched the idea to Jennifer in a one-on-one meeting on January 18th. I even had the calendar invite and my notes from that meeting. Jennifer encouraged me to develop it further, I said. She told me it showed initiative. I sent her weekly updates throughout February, March, and April. Every major milestone, every creative direction, every strategic decision, it's all documented in my emails. Jennifer tried to interrupt, but Marcus and I contributed significant strategic guidance. Show me where, Thomas said coldly. Show me one email, one document, one piece of evidence that demonstrates your involvement before mid-May. Silence. Marcus finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. We can't, because there isn't any. Jennifer's head snapped toward him. Marcus, don't. It's over, Jennifer, he said, and I saw tears in his eyes. We got caught. This is done. The words hung in the air like a confession at a murder trial. Diane was typing furiously on her laptop. The legal representatives exchanged glances. Thomas leaned back in his chair. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. You both knowingly attempted to steal a junior employee's work, alter company records to support your false claims, and present this stolen material to executives as your own creation. All for what? A promotion? Recognition? It wasn't supposed to be like this, Jennifer said, and her voice cracked. I've given 8 years to this company. 8 years of being passed over for VP while less qualified men got promoted. This campaign was supposed to be my proof that I deserved that position. So you stole it from someone else? Rachel's disgust was palpable. I was going to give her credit. Jennifer insisted. As a contributor, she would have been acknowledged. That's not how authorship works, I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. You don't get to steal someone's entire body of work and then acknowledge them as a footnote. That's not mentorship. That's theft. Jennifer's face twisted with something ugly. Anger, resentment, desperation all mixed together. You have no idea what it's like to fight for every scrap of recognition in this industry. You're young. You have time. I needed this now. That's not her problem, Thomas said sharply. That's your problem. And you chose to solve it through fraud and manipulation instead of doing your own work. The meeting continued for another hour. They separated us, interviewing Jennifer and Marcus individually, while I waited in another conference room with a bottle of water and my racing thoughts. I felt numb, disconnected from reality. Part of me still couldn't believe this was actually happening. Around noon, Diane came back with Thomas and one of the legal representatives. We're placing both Jennifer Matthews and Marcus Webb on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation, Thomas said. They'll be escorted from the building today. Given the severity of the misconduct and the clear evidence of intent, I don't anticipate their employment continuing with this company. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As for you, he continued, and my stomach dropped. You handled this situation exactly right. You gathered evidence, followed proper channels, and protected the company's interests. The titanium presentation is postponed until next week. You'll be presenting it as the lead strategist and sole author. If you land this account, and I believe you will, we'll be discussing your promotion to senior strategist. The relief hit me like a physical wave. I actually felt dizzy. Thank you, I managed to say. Don't thank me, Thomas said. You earned this. Now go take the rest of the day to decompress. You've been through something traumatic. I gathered my things and left the conference room. In the main office area, people were whispering, staring. Word had clearly spread that something major was happening. I saw Jennifer being escorted out by security, carrying a cardboard box with her desk items. She saw me and stopped. For a moment, we just looked at each other. I expected her to say something, apologize, curse me out, anything. But she just shook her head slowly, like I was the one who disappointed her, and kept walking. Marcus left 10 minutes later. He didn't look at anyone, just kept his eyes on the floor as security walked him to the elevator. I went home that afternoon and completely fell apart. All the adrenaline, all the fear and anger I'd been holding in for weeks just came pouring out. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried for an hour straight. Not because I felt bad for them, I didn't, but because I was processing what had almost happened. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, if I hadn't gathered evidence, if I hadn't been brave enough to speak up, they would have stolen my work and destroyed my credibility. I would have been the person who got sidelined while they got promoted on my ideas. The next few days were surreal. HR conducted interviews with other team members, trying to determine if there had been other instances of misconduct. Apparently, Jennifer had a history of taking credit for junior employees' ideas, but no one had ever formally complained. People were afraid of retaliation, of being labeled difficult or not a team player. Sarah from accounting pulled me aside on Wednesday. "I'm so glad you did this," she said quietly. 2 years ago, Jennifer took one of my budget optimization proposals and presented it as her own innovation to the CFO. I was too scared to say anything. You were braver than I was. That conversation haunted me. How many others had Jennifer done this to? How many careers had she damaged or stunted because she was desperate for recognition she hadn't earned? The investigation wrapped up by Friday. Both Jennifer and Marcus were officially terminated for gross misconduct, falsification of company records, and attempted fraud. The legal team mentioned they could potentially face civil action if they tried to use any of the stolen materials elsewhere, but honestly, I didn't want to pursue that. I just wanted them gone. The following Tuesday, I presented the titanium auto campaign to the executive team. Just me, standing in that conference room, walking them through 4 months of my work, my research, my creative vision. My hands shook for the first 5 minutes, but then something clicked. This was mine. I'd earned this moment. The executives loved it. Titanium Auto Group signed a 3-year contract worth $4.2 million. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to senior strategist with a 30% salary increase. Thomas personally called me into his office to deliver the news. "You've shown integrity, talent, and courage," he said. "Those are the qualities we want leading this company forward." But the story doesn't end there. Because karma, as it turns out, has a long memory and a wicked sense of timing. About 6 weeks after the terminations, I was scrolling through LinkedIn during my lunch break when I saw something that made me stop cold. Marcus had posted about starting a new opportunity at a competitor firm, Apex Marketing Solutions. The post was typical corporate fluff about excited for new challenges and grateful for fresh starts. I felt anger flare up again. He'd landed on his feet. After everything he'd done, some other company had hired him without knowing his history. I sat with that anger for about an hour, debating what to do. Then I remembered something Rachel had mentioned during the investigation: professional references and background checks. I reached out to her. "Did Apex contact us for Marcus's reference?" I asked. "They did," she said. "We're legally limited in what we can disclose, but we confirmed dates of employment and stated he was terminated for cause. We can't elaborate on the specific reasons without his consent." But they hired him anyway? Apparently. Some companies don't dig deeper than surface-level checks. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. But I decided to let it go. Marcus would have to live with what he'd done. That was punishment enough. Or so I thought. 3 months later, this was just last week, I got a call from a former colleague who'd moved to Apex 6 months before all this happened. Her name was Nicole, and we'd always gotten along well. "You need to hear this," she said, her voice urgent. "Marcus Webb just got fired. And it's bad." Apparently, Marcus had tried to pull the exact same scheme at Apex. He'd stolen a campaign concept from a junior designer named Tyler, altered files to make it look like his own work, and attempted to present it to a major client. But Tyler had been smarter than I'd initially been. He'd watermarked his design files with hidden metadata and kept backup copies on a personal drive. When Tyler discovered his work had been copied, he immediately went to Apex's leadership with evidence. They investigated and found Marcus had been doing the same thing Jennifer taught him: changing file dates, erasing original authorship, positioning himself as the creative genius behind other people's ideas. Apex fired him on the spot. But here's where it gets even better. Tyler's father was apparently a corporate attorney, and he convinced Tyler to file a formal complaint with the industry's Professional Marketing Association. Marcus now has a formal ethics violation on his record that follows him professionally. Any reputable firm that does a thorough background check will find it. Nicole told me Marcus tried to get references from people at our old company, former colleagues who didn't know the full story of what happened. But word had spread. No one would vouch for him. His reputation in Chicago's marketing scene was effectively destroyed. "I thought you'd want to know," Nicole said. "Karma got him." And Jennifer? I found out through the grapevine that she'd tried to get consulting work after being fired, but struggled to build a client base. Turns out when you've spent your career taking credit for other people's work, you don't actually develop the skills to produce quality work yourself. Last I heard, she'd moved to Arizona and was working in a completely different industry. I don't take pleasure in their downfalls, exactly, but I do feel a sense of justice. They made calculated decisions to destroy my career for their own advancement. They gambled that I'd be too afraid or too naive to fight back. And they lost. Looking back on everything, here's what I learned. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Document everything. Emails, conversations, file versions, dates. Protect your work like it's gold, because to some people, that's exactly what it is. And most importantly, speak up. I was terrified when I decided to expose Jennifer and Marcus. I thought I might lose my job, that no one would believe me, that I'd be labeled a troublemaker. But staying silent would have cost me so much more than speaking up ever did. To anyone reading this who's dealing with workplace theft, manipulation, or betrayal, you're not crazy for feeling hurt. You're not overreacting. Your work has value, and you deserve credit for it. Gather your evidence, follow proper channels, and don't let fear keep you from protecting what's yours. And to Jennifer and Marcus, if you somehow see this, I hope you've learned that shortcuts and stolen valor never lead anywhere worth going. Some of us are willing to do the actual work. That's the difference between earning success and faking it. Thank you for listening to this story. I needed to get it out. Update. For those asking, yes, the Titanium Auto campaign is still going strong. We just renewed for year 2, and I'm now leading a team of 3 people. Life is good. Justice feels even better.